Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Wednesday, and all of our guests today, brought to you by our title sponsor. Happy to have them aboard as always. Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. We're joined now by John Shannon from the 100% Hockey podcast. By the way, just before we get to John, you were so far off with your claim that U.S. secondary
it's
the
size-wise.
high school.
No, it's size-wise. It's the biggest.
Population-wise or size-wise?
Size-wise. I'm talking about the length of the school is massive. There's no school big as NWSS in Lower Mainland.
There might be one in Oliver. Let's bring in John Shannon, the pride of Oliver. How are you, sir?
There is no chance that Oliver was, which was called South Okanagan Secondary, by the way, was bigger than New Westminster. But I did think we beat them at basketball.
Oh, yeah. Really? The Hayaks? Come on.
I thought they were undefeated every single year. I guess not. Yeah.
Oh, wait, listen. Oliver was a basketball town.
Yeah.
Did you play, John?
Badly.
Yeah, we know that.
As one story I tell is that in my final year there, I was the sixth man, and I had this idea that we had a big tournament in Oliver, and I wanted the games to be broadcast on the local radio station. And so I went to the coach and I said, listen, I think I can get these games on radio, on the local radio station. Do you mind if I do the play-by-play rather than play? And he said, please.
Oh, that's so good.
In there, yep.
That's so good. Hey, it's tough to switch gears, but we're going to do it. Four Nations, we haven't talked to you since it ended. What was your final takeaway, and what did it do for hockey?
Well, I don't think we know what it's done for hockey yet. I'll answer the last question first. I do think that there's an opportunity to help people outside the hardcore hockey fan in the United States and Canada to enjoy the game. So let's see what it does to TV ratings, particularly in the playoffs, particularly in the United States. As far as the tournament, I can't imagine anybody saying that it didn't exceed every expectation. We talked a week ago or 2 weeks ago about the ratings, and I said it would get 2 million the opening night. It got 2.1. I don't think anybody predicted it would get close to 5 million for the Saturday night game. I don't think anybody predicted it would get close to 7 million in Canada for the final. So it did everything it was supposed to do and more. I think that everybody in the league office in New York is probably smiling still today.
John, I want to see the numbers from Columbus and Detroit. Outdoor game coming up. I think it's 85,000 plus tickets sold already.
Yeah.
Are we losing these outdoor games, losing the luster, or is it still, in your eyes, a big event?
I think it's a big event in Detroit and Columbus.
Yeah.
And I do think that there will be a fascination amongst our American friends to watch a hockey game at an iconic college football stadium. There were those of us that were lucky to be part of the 104,000 at the Big House in Michigan when the Leafs played the Red Wings. But this is one of those ones where, people who are college football fans, and let's face it, there are more college football fans in the United States than there are hockey fans. Perhaps that this will, following the Four Nations, this will actually make them tune in. Guys, you know as well as I do, and you've seen outdoor games or so-called outdoor games even in Vancouver. Hockey outdoors is tough to watch. Yep. It is. Let's face it. But it's an event. And that's what the NHL has done a really good job of creating an event. And just so happens that this game is the second game of a back-to-back between the Jackets and the Red Wings. And it means something. It means a lot for both of these teams as they fight for a playoff spot.
John, the trade deadline 9 days away. Canadian markets, everyone's talking. What's going to happen? We don't know if the Canucks are going to be a seller or a buyer. Besser, that's a massive decision coming up. What do you see some of the top priorities for the Canucks heading into that trade deadline?
Well, it's funny because, going into the break, and you guys talked about this already, going into the break, I think everybody thought the Canucks were over their problems. I think they got points in 7 of 8 games and had done a very good job of turning things around after the Miller trade. And it's amazing how quickly 2 games can kill you in that scenario. I still think the Canucks will make the playoffs. I think there'll be a tweak here or there. They need another goal scorer. Let's face it. The way things have gone, the way Pettersson is playing, they need somebody else to put the puck in the net, and we'll see what happens. The big question is, and Rick, you probably have a better feel for it than I do, is if you do that, what do you give up? That becomes the real problem. They've given a lot up the last little while. What do you give up in order to try to find another goal scorer?
Talking with John Shannon. John, your memories, again, we haven't talked to you for a bit here, for a week, your memories of the late, hard time saying that, great Mike Lang.
Oh, well, you know what?
You had a great tweet
every
on
town.
it.
Well, no, well, thank you. Every hardcore hockey fan in every city in the NHL identified with the radio and TV voice. Dare I say, Vancouver's been really fortunate to have such a small list of guys for the 50 years that the Canucks have been around. When you think of Jim Robson, and when you think of Jimmy Houston, and you think of John Shorthouse now. Well, Mike Lang was all of those 3 guys wrapped up in one in Pittsburgh. And he was a character. And he was able to take his sayings and very naturally put them into his regular play-by-play, whether it was Elvis has left the building or, and I don't even, when Malkin scored, it was make me a milkshake, Malkin, so there was a natural ability. And what it did do, Donnie, was in so many ways, it insulated the team when the team was bad. People could identify with Mike Lang when the team wasn't as good as it was, and it's been really good for a long period of time. People will walk down the street and say, well, I remember when I would watch or listen to Mike and enjoy the Penguins even if they weren't winning. Yeah. And that's what a really quality local broadcaster can do. Yeah. And he transcended in so many ways. He transcended the hardcore fan and sold the game in Pittsburgh to a lot of people, and deserves a lot of credit for where the franchise was. Through thick or thin and through bankruptcies and championships, Mike Lang was there, and he was the voice of the Penguins. And first of all, he was a great person, but he lived and died with the Penguins, and he made fans live and die with the Penguins, and knew a lot about the game too. He wasn't just a phony; he was the real deal. In a town that's famous for play-by-play guys, when you think of guys like Myron Cope in the Steelers and Bob Prince with the Pirates.
Yeah. Yep. He transcended hockey. He transcended Pittsburgh. Everybody knew him around the National Hockey League. Hey, John.
By the way, hey, hold on. I want to ask you, Donnie.
Is another
you did a Johnny Carson. You did a Johnny Carson impression, and nobody caught it other than me. I caught it.
Oh yeah. Well, I knew you would. And I appreciate that.
I caught it. Yeah. Ryan doesn't know who Johnny Carson is.
He's 20. He's 25. He's 25.
The good old days. I want to ask you one more question because I previewed it earlier, but very quickly, John. Rick mentioned the game, Ohio State. I don't know if you did the Big House game. It was in 2014, by the way. Time flies. But what's it like setting up television for something like hockey's different than football? You're talking about a smaller playing surface. What's that like setting up for television in a venue that big?
Well, I was lucky enough. I was involved in the first 3 outdoor games for the National Hockey League as the VP of broadcasting. And the challenge is that the first, in football, the first 10 rows are the best seats. At a hockey game outdoors, the first 10 rows are the worst seats because you can't see anything because of the boards. So the challenge becomes making sure that the right angles are used for the cameras that are put up in the stands, and then convince the people who are producing and directing the games to use the handheld cameras that are on the glass and in the corners. And it's really hard to do. You do have to change your philosophy of how you cover a game a great deal between an outdoor game and between a game that it's in a regular arena, where now we've done a pretty good job over the years of standardizing camera positions.
You'll never be a sixth man or a bench warmer on this show, John.
Never.
Thanks for this.
Never.
I tell you what, my play-by-play was pretty good, though. I tell you what, play-by-play.
Yeah. John, thanks.
I had to sell the time, too.
Oh, my gosh, you do it all.
Oh.
Yeah, but I couldn't play defense, apparently.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Cheers, boys.
Awesome. What a great story.